Printing and other peripherals. This nugget is about all the different ways and things you can connect to your Mac using its built-in ports, as well as some of its wireless connectivity. So we're going to talk about printers. We'll actually set up a printer. I've got a printer connected to another computer in the office, and so we'll get that set up. We will connect a Bluetooth mouse and look at some of the Bluetooth connectivity options and kind of walk through how Bluetooth works. And we'll talk about using external USB and FireWire drives, whether it's a hard drive or a flash drive or whatever. And we're not going to, I know you guys know what a USB drive is already. What we're really going to talk about is how the Mac interacts with that, and just a couple of cautions you have to be aware of when you're using them with the Mac. So let's get started and do some printing. All right, let's start with printers. So Apple menu, System Preferences, Print and Fax. Obviously, no printers in here, so I'm going to install one. I've actually gotten a printer set up on my desktop Mac, and I've configured my desktop Mac to share that using an Apple technology called Bonjour. And now Bonjour is something you can use for Windows. And it's part of Universal Plug and Play. It's designed to make it a little bit easier for computers to find available devices and stuff. So actually what's happening is the printer is making itself available via Bonjour to my desktop, and my desktop is then sharing it out to the rest of the network. But if you need to, apple.com/bonjour. This technology used to be called Rendezvous, very briefly, and then they ran into a copyright thing. So if we kind of look on this page, you will find, here it is, the link to install Bonjour on your Windows PC. It doesn't require a restart or anything. It's actually a really quick install. So it's a neat thing to have floating around because a lot of devices do support it. So I'm going to add that printer first. Hit plus to add a printer. And let's see, we've got one of the other machines in the office is out there sharing a printer. So it's looking for that one. I can say, let's look for some fax machines. And I actually have one that is attached via Bluetooth. We can look for any IP ones. So if you've got a printer out there with maybe a Hewlett-Packard JetDirect card and it's running a Line Printer Daemon LPD emulator, you punch in the host name or the IP address. If there's multiple queues being supported, because some JetDirects will let you plug in more than one printer, but if there's only one queue, leave this blank. Otherwise, you can enter the queue name, and then that will attach it. You can look for printers that are being shared by Windows computers. So you kind of browse. I've got a Windows work group, and we've got a couple of different computers there. Okay, this one's not sharing anything, and that one's not sharing anything. So you can browse around and see what printers are available. Oops. Actually, it may have been sharing something. It wanted me to authenticate there. Let's not do that. This is now going to look for a printer that it's trying to discover a Bluetooth printer that's sharing itself. Apple Talk was turned off. If you've got Apple Talk turned on, you've got a really old LaserJet or something that's using Apple Talk, then you can get there that way. And then you've got other printers. So I don't have any third-party printer browsers. Before you can use more printers, you need to have the printer drivers installed. Let's just go to default. And since this is in the office and it's already set up, already knows what kind of device it's using. The neat part about this is if you're using this default mode and it's able to, you can see this printer is being shared with Bonjour. Then I don't need the printer drivers on my local computer. It will actually just send the print job in a generic format. Apple Macs use a system called CUPS, the Common Universal Printing System, and so it's a way for this computer here to bundle up its print documents in a way that any Mac can understand, send it off to Chris's iMac, and then Chris's iMac has the drivers to talk directly to this Canon MX850. So I'm just going to add that. There we go. Office printer. I can open the print queue. No documents waiting. I can do options and supplies. It'll probably go off to a website. I can set that to be my default printer. Give it a default, paper size and everything else. If you do have a locally installed printer, the best thing to do is install the manufacturer's drivers first. Hopefully you checked to make sure that the manufacturer provides Mac OS X drivers. Most of the major manufacturers do now. HP, Canon, Brother, Epson, pretty much everybody is on board with getting you the Mac drivers now. So install those drivers first, then come in here, hit plus, go over to that More Printers, and you'll be able to find it there. A lot of times, part of installing the printer drivers for a computer. They run you through this whole kind of wizard, and it wants you to connect the USB or whatever. That will usually take care of setting up all the stuff in the operating system that needs to be set up. So if you are using that installer to install a locally connected printer, then you'll probably be fine. So let's go back to System Preferences here. I want to bop back into Printer here real quick. Make sure that stayed. Sometimes I get a little superstitious about it. So that is set to the default, blah, 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 blah. Great. For locally connected printers, you do get a few more options. You can configure a lot of printing defaults, like whether or not it uses duplex or change the color quality or something like that. But for the remote computer, when you're connected to a printer shared by a remote computer, then the remote computer gets to control all those defaults. However, if I do come up, let's pull up a Safari page again. Let's just go to google.com, since that's a fairly small web page. If I go to print this, File, Print, you'll see that I do get plenty of options. Safari options appear up here. Do I want to print backgrounds and headers and footers? Let's say no headers and footers. We can change the layout of the page. 1 page per sheet, 2 pages per sheet of paper, color matching, paper handling. These are all standard options. Again, when you're using a remote printer, because the driver actually sits on the remote computer, you're not going to get all of the device-specific stuff. You'll see, for example, that under paper handling, I don't necessarily get duplexing, even though this printer does support duplexing. And that's because I don't have the drivers installed locally, and I'm not connected locally. So there are some differences when you're connected to a remote printer versus connected to a local printer. So we'll hit print, and off it goes. It prints, and we'll go into System Preferences, see if I can get into the printer queue before it Yep, and so we can see that document there. I was just trying to get there before it actually completed. That computer is probably sitting in the office warming up the printer and getting ready to go. So that's how to set up a printer, how to get it working on your Mac. Okay, let's play around with Bluetooth now. To do that, back to System Preferences, pop open the Bluetooth pane. Now obviously the first thing you're going to want to do is make sure that you've got Bluetooth turned on. Now, if you don't want to come into the System Preferences to manage Bluetooth, like if you find yourself using Bluetooth a lot, then you can put a little status indicator right in the menu bar. Click on that, and it'll give you access to most of the common Bluetooth functionality, including the ability to reopen this Preferences pane. So you can make your computer discoverable via Bluetooth, which means other devices will be able to see it. You do not have to make it discoverable if your only plan is to attach a Bluetooth mouse or a keyboard. They don't need to discover your computer usually. Your computer needs to discover them. Clicking on Advanced lets us see kind of some of the different things we've got. We can allow Bluetooth devices to wake this computer. We can share the internet connection of this computer with other Bluetooth devices. Open the Bluetooth Setup Assistant at startup when no input device is present. This is kind of useful. Apple turns it off by default because they don't want it to be annoying, but most Apple computers come with a plug-in mouse and keyboard. If you're going to ditch those and you're going to use wireless mouse and keyboard instead, this is a good thing to turn on. That way, if for some reason your computer loses its wireless pairing connection with the mouse or the keyboard, when the computer starts up and it sees, oh my goodness, there's no mouse or keyboard available, it can automatically start the Bluetooth Setup Assistant so that you can get reconnected to that mouse and keyboard. Hopefully. That's the idea in any event. File sharing setup. Again, this takes us to the sharing tab. We can decide to share across, down here, Bluetooth. And this is kind of the neat bit where you may have to make your computer discoverable. When other devices ask to browse, you're going to require that they be paired with the computer first. So you might need to get your computer into a discoverable state so that another device can see it. But what we're going to do right now is actually add a Bluetooth mouse. So to add a new device, I just click plus. I'm going to go to the Bluetooth Setup Assistant. Click Continue. I'm going to tell it I am adding a mouse, and I am going to turn on the mouse. Now, the reason it's important to tell it what device you're adding is because different devices get added in different ways. Apple mice and keyboard have a kind of a particular procedure you follow. Mobile phones work a little bit differently. Headsets, obviously, since they don't typically have as many buttons or any kind of display, those are going to work differently. So telling it the right type of device is key. If you're adding a presentation pointer, like a little clicker for PowerPoint, typically those are going to go in as a mouse or a keyboard, and usually I would click mouse as my first option. So I'm going to turn my mouse on here. So that's its power switch. Tell it to continue. So now my computer's actually searching across Bluetooth, and it found one. I was able to name this device because it's one I've used previously with a different computer. So I'm going to say continue. Let's go ahead and use that mouse. The pairing process will differ depending on what type of device. You may have seen it fly by right there. It said it's going to use an empty passkey. Bluetooth is designed to be secure so that, oops. Alright, so it's all paired, and we're going to quit this, and now you can see over here that it's paired and connected, and if I slide it around on the screen, yeah, it's making the mouse kind of jiggle there. So, all good. So the idea behind the passkey business is that Bluetooth is designed to be secure, so you don't want a device coming up and pairing with your computer without you knowing about it. And by the same token, somebody who's walking around the office with a mouse, for example, might not want you pairing your computer with their device. So a lot of devices will define a passcode. Now the Apple devices typically define an empty passcode, which means they're a little bit less secure. If you go to pair your mobile phone, usually what will happen is your mobile phone will pop up a PIN, a little 4-digit code on the screen, and you have to enter that code on your computer in order to pair with the device, or vice versa. The code will pop up on your computer, and you'll have to enter the code on the device in order to pair. So now that we've connected that mouse, let's go back to All System Preferences, go to Keyboard and Mouse. We can see that I now have a Bluetooth tab because there's a mouse connected. It's going to show me the battery level. I don't have a keyboard connected yet. And then on the Mouse tab, I can actually start configuring what this mouse will do for me. If I squash down on the little roller bar, I want it to show the dashboard. And so there's the dashboard. And so here's where people think Apple only produces single button mice. The left and the right button are set up to act as a primary button. So I can change the right side to a secondary button, and then you've on this particular mouse got these little squeezy buttons on the side which launches expose. I can never quite manage this, but let's see if I can squeeze the side buttons correctly. Oh, there it goes. And so it's pulled back, and since I only have this one window open, that's the application you're seeing, but now we're in expose mode. And then we're allowing horizontal and vertical scrolling. You can change that and adjust your speed and everything else. Another neat feature that a lot of folks don't know about, especially with this particular Bluetooth mouse, is that if I hold the control key, like it says down here, so I'm holding control, and then I use the scroll ball. Let's see if I hold control and hit the there we go, control ball, I can actually zoom in the screen. This is useful for a couple of instances. If you're working with a user who has a visual impairment and sometimes they need to just zoom in and see something, they can do that, and you'll notice that I'm able to scroll around and stay zoomed. And if I release the control key, it stays zoomed, so I don't have to hold the control key. This is also useful if you're doing a demo or a presentation for someone and you need to zoom in on a portion of the screen, like maybe zoom into a spreadsheet or something. So control key and zooming back out. And it'll only zoom out to full screen size. So let's look at the options for that. So we can zoom continuously with the pointer only when the pointer reaches a screen edge, or keep it so that the screen image has the pointer near the center of the image. So those are your options for that. And then you can obviously pick a different modifier key, Control, Option, or Command. So that's setting up a Bluetooth mouse and really working with Bluetooth in general. All right, so next up, let's talk about external drives. FireWire and USB both behave the same way for Macs. So I actually have a USB hard drive here, an external USB hard drive that we'll use. FireWire behaves the same way. It's just the icon on the desktop looks a little different. Macs, depending on what model of Mac you have, may have up to 3 different types of port that you can expand to plug in external hard drives, video cameras, whatever else. Obviously, you've got USB. Any modern Macintosh is going to have USB 2.0, so it's high speed, 480 kilobytes or megabits per second. FireWire, regular FireWire, is also called FireWire 400, so 400 megabits per second. It's about the same speed as USB 2. And then you've got FireWire 800, which uses a different physical type of connector and supports an 800 megabit bus. Now, like I said, I have a USB hard drive, so I'm going to lean around the back of the computer here and try and avoid clicking my mouse all over the desktop if I can. Let's get rid of that. Okay, so lean around the back and find this USB port. There it is. And if I can get the USB connector facing the right direction, there we go. Alright, as soon as you do that, the Mac will automatically try to mount it, and you can see right away I get this little untitled. So this is the volume. I can open that up, browse around with the files, do all that. That's not the interesting stuff. The interesting thing is how to get rid of it. So let me open up a Finder window, and we'll just kind of pull it off to the side here. You can see in Finder in the sidebar that device shows up, and that's because my Finder preferences are set to do that. And I've got this little eject button here that I can use to get rid of the drive. But first of all, let's not do that. I'm just going to reach over to the back of the computer again and pull that out. And the Mac immediately gets upset. It says the device you removed was not properly put away. Macs use something called a lazy write. Let me plug this back in so I can show you the right way to do it. Macs use something called a lazy write, which means when the Mac is writing data to the drive and you copy something to the drive, it doesn't necessarily copy it all at once. So I'm going to go into my Documents folder. I've got a little doc over here called the list. Let's just copy that over. The way we're used to working with USB devices on a lot of computers, I guess, is we kind of stare at the thing and we wait until the USB drive or the flash drive's activity light stops blinking, and that lets us know that it has in fact written. With a Mac, it may not even try to write it all to the drive right then. It might wait a few seconds depending on what else is going on the USB bus. And so by just ripping the drive out, you may leave those files in a corrupted state. So what the Mac wants you to do is actually eject it. Now I showed you the way in Finder. Another way to eject it is to drag it, and you'll notice that my trash can is turned into an eject icon, or right click and say eject. Now if the Mac is still in the process of writing files, then it won't let you eject it. It'll tell you that the device is in use. In this case, there was no activity going on, so it did eject it, and it just the drive icon went away, and that lets me know that it's safe to reach around here and pull that thing out, and I don't have to worry about the data being corrupted. Now, something else, when you're using other types of USB devices, maybe a USB mouse or something like that, don't expect to see anything happen. So when I first started using Windows XP, you plug in a mouse, let's say a USB mouse or a trackball or keyboard or whatever, and down at the bottom of the screen it comes up and says, oh, a new device was plugged in. Oh, I'm searching for drivers. Oh, I'm installing the driver. Okay, everything was installed. It's great. It's wonderful. Yay! And you almost want confetti to go falling down the screen because the computer gets so excited that the device worked. The first time I used a Mac, though, I went and got a non-Apple. It was actually a Microsoft trackball, a USB trackball, plugged it into the back of the computer, and nothing happened. And I started thinking to myself, oh, this is a piece of garbage. It's all supposed to be plug and play and supposed to just work magically, but nothing's happened. And I kind of bumped the trackball, and the pointer went skittering across the screen like that. And what I realized is that when you plug something into a Mac, it assumes it's going to work, and it will let you know if something's wrong. When you plug something into a Windows XP computer, it assumes it's not going to work, and so it has a little party when everything actually goes right. So don't expect to see a lot of pop-ups or anything else when you plug devices in. If it's working, nothing will usually happen. If it's not working, then the Mac will come up and tell you that it wasn't able to use the device or something else. So Anyway, that's using external USB drives, flash drives, and sort of the little caveat on plugging in any kind of external USB or FireWire devices that don't expect to see anything happen unless something goes wrong. In this nugget, we looked at different ways to connect peripherals to your Mac and use them. We connected a printer that's actually a remote printer connected to a different computer. We connected a Bluetooth mouse and looked at some of the different Bluetooth options and how to get Bluetooth up and running. And we also plugged in a USB drive, same as if we'd plugged in a FireWire drive. And the thing there to keep in mind is to make sure you eject that thing before you actually rip it out of the back of the computer. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.